You're listening to the Red Podcast.
This is episode number 151. I'm talking about partnerships, what you should look for in a partner, and why most people should go it alone.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
So I got a tweet earlier. It came in yesterday. It was about Red Podcast number 150. And if you're interested in listening to that, redpodcast.com/150. It was from The Thirst. This is a podcast. Cy and Derek are the co-host. And it said, paging at David Hooper. So no blooper outtakes on solo episodes? Cy and Derek, the solo episodes that I do have been deemed perfect in every way. And because of that, there are no bloopers. In all seriousness, one of the things that I like to do is listen to how other people are podcasting. And I found these guys while looking for co-hosted podcast. Their podcast, it's called The Thirst, and they spell it Thrst. One of the best examples of a co-hosted podcast that I have found. It's not for everybody. It may not be for you. There's actually a warning on the front end. But if you're interested and you want to hear great co-hosting, what good rapport sounds like, check them out. Search for Thirst, Thrst on Google. They'll pop up. You're going to love it. That message from the guys of The Thirst, it got me thinking about good partnerships and bad partnerships. I've had both, mostly bad partnerships. So the topic on this episode, how to have a successful partnership. A quick word of warning. Are you looking for or are you already in a business partnership only because you're scared of proceeding alone? This has gotten me in more trouble than I'd like to admit. It's very easy when we're scared to take on other people because if our project fails, we'll just blame the other person. It's kind of like carrying around a security blanket or like Dumbo had a feather even though he could fly on his own. That may be something that you want to take a look at. We've all seen that guy or girl who can't stand to be alone. He's in a bad relationship because he feels that any relationship is better than being alone. Don't want to be at home alone on a Friday night. I think we all know that it's far better to be on your own rather than have the wrong partner in either a personal or business situation. So don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. It's no fun being miserable, and you can have a successful business. You can have a successful life if you are alone. I want to take this back to the Thirst podcast for a second. A good partner brings something to the table that you don't have. And when you go search for Thirst, Thrst, you listen to this podcast, notice how these guys bounce off each other. It's funny that those guys were joking around about bloopers on the solo Red podcast because when Laurel's here, a lot of the bloopers that I have is because she's catching me saying something that maybe I shouldn't. Maybe there's a line and I'm just stepping right over it. That is what a good partner does. A good partner lets you know when you're doing something that maybe you shouldn't be doing. So think about that when you're getting your partner. A good partner brings something to the table that you don't have. I want to talk about 3 big ideas in finding a good partner and having a partnership that works. The first thing you need to know is history. Know who you're getting into bed with. With that said, you don't want to know people too well. You don't want to go into business with your best friend. There's a great documentary film. It was shot around 1999, 2000 during the whole dot-com boom. It's called Startup.com. And this is exactly what you don't want to happen. 2 high school friends, they went to college, decided to start a company, and they called it GovWorks. And it's funny to look back on this because this was a site that simply allowed people in New York to pay parking tickets online, which of course you can do that now. We don't think anything about that. But this was a huge company. They had $60 million in funding. And this documentary followed them and their friendship as they started the company, as they quit their jobs so they could run it, getting the funding, proceeding to blow through all the money, and what happened to the friendship afterwards. I don't want to spoil it too much, but at the very end, the two were having a discussion, and they said, what's the biggest regret that you have? Well, it's the friendship, and that's the kind of thing that can happen when you get into business with somebody that you know too well. On one hand, you do trust them, you know the history, but the business aspects of working together can certainly put a strain on personal relationships. Big idea number 2, have a clear direction, clear vision, clear mission. Just like a personal relationship, you're not going to go out with somebody, get married to them without knowing about kids, money, politics, and religion. There's certainly people that attempt to do that. That's why so many relationships fail. And you need to have similar aspects that you're clear on in business. Belief system, I call this a secular religion. How is it that you handle things? Where do you want the company to go? Similar beliefs on money. What's going to happen when you get money? How are you going to divide money? How are you going to spend money? What are you going to spend it on? Also, motivation. And this is important because this is what's going to affect the decisions that you make. You really want to be on the same page. It doesn't have to be exact because, like I said, people need to bring in different elements or else there's no point in having more than one person in the room. But you do want to be on what I call parallel tracks. You need to be headed in the same direction. You can't have one guy going left while the other's going right. And that includes money, motivation, belief system, anything that you would think about in a personal relationship. It can be magnetized in a business relationship. You know, sometimes a business relationship is more important than a personal relationship in your life because you're spending so much time, especially if you're starting a company. It could be hundreds of hours per week, depending on how hard you're working. You've got to get clear you're spending more time with these guys than your family. And when it comes to taking care of your family, these things are going to matter. You want to put this stuff in writing, by the way. It's not because you don't trust your partner, because you shouldn't be in business with somebody that you don't trust. But when somebody's having a conversation with another, two people are involved, you're hearing different things. More people than two are involved, it gets even more complicated. Write it down. Make sure you're very clear where the money's going, what your motivation is, how everything is delegated, how everything is going to be checked up on, what's going to happen if somebody doesn't do his job, what's going to happen if somebody gets sick and tired of working and wants to bail out, what's the exit strategy going to look like. You need to know all of these things. What does each partner expect? How much is each partner willing to put in? That's not just sweat equity, how many hours you're going to work. That's also financially. What are you going to put in? What sacrifices are you going to make? When the company needs money, are you willing to sign your house over with a second mortgage? Think about it. These are the kind of questions that you want to ask yourself. Write out the job responsibilities. Write out the job roles. You need to have tough conversations on these things while things are going well. What's going to happen when things get weird? What's going to happen when things get challenging? You want to handle problems early. Things do get challenging, and rifts start to happen relatively quickly when you're in a pressure cooker of money, time, you're stressed out, you've got people coming to you that you need services, you're trying to get new clients, you feel like the other guy's not working as hard as you are. Maybe you're like startup.com and everybody's watching you. They know the ins and the outs of it. Handle that early. Don't let it get bigger than it needs to be. Big idea number 3, needed skills. Don't have skills that overlap. Can your partner be easily replaced? Well, you might not need them. It's a big mistake to bring a partner in because you don't have money to hire somebody. Or like I mentioned earlier, you're afraid of failing and you don't want to take complete responsibility for that. I've got a funny story regarding needed skills and skills that don't overlap. Being in the music industry, one year I was at South by Southwest and I saw a great band. These guys were great, except the drummer couldn't keep time. And that's the guy that you need to keep time. The drums and the bass, those are the guys that are holding it down for everybody else to build on top of. This drummer was off, but everybody else, they seemed like they knew what they were doing. Singer was great, bass player was great, but they were locked in on one groove. And these guys, because of that, had gotten used to playing without him. So I mentioned something to one of the guys after the fact. I said, man, you guys are fantastic. I think you've really got something here, but this drummer, he's offbeat. He can't keep time. The meter's all crazy. And he told me, he said, oh, yeah, we heard that before, but he's the one with the truck. I was thinking, what? But I couldn't say anything because there was the answer. Those guys weren't ready to let him go. Now, you could hire somebody with a truck. You could go find a great drummer. You could hire a great drummer. These guys weren't ready to hear that, though. They were like that girl in the relationship who thinks some relationship is better than being alone. These guys could have gone out and found another drummer, but they were feeling that they wouldn't have the band at all if this guy happened to leave because he had a truck. Stupid mistake. Yet we do it every day in our businesses, bringing people that aren't up to our level because we're either afraid of doing something alone or because we've got a financial situation where money is tight, we've got cash flow issues, and we can't afford to hire who we need to hire and who we want to hire. Where do you go to find partners? Much like finding a spouse, much like finding somebody to date, get out and live. Go to places that interest you, Go to places that fit into your lifestyle. Go to classes with the topics that you need to learn about. Ask your friends, just like getting set up on a date, who's somebody that I could partner up with this? They know you, they know other people, and using that network is going to help you to find the partnerships that you need. Here's a story, and this is funny to end on this, considering that I talked about The Thirst earlier. I was listening to them just to get an idea of what great co-host sounds like so I can improve myself as a host and as a co-host. But 10, 12 years ago, when I was first starting in broadcast radio, I was listening to other shows doing the exact same thing, and these were just random shows. They weren't on any specific topic. Happened to be listening to a show kind of in the spirituality vein, kind of like a new age mindset thing along the lines of Earl Nightingale or some of the stuff that we've talked about here on Red Podcast, a Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich kind of thing. And a caller called in. She was from Toronto, Canada. She was starting up her business, and she called in asking about the mindset of starting a business. I thought it was very interesting. She had an interesting story. She had an interesting business. And being a marketing guy, I decided to reach out to her because they gave her an opportunity to plug the business at the end. I took advantage of that, and literally within 30 minutes, because I had reached out to her and told her that I was a marketing guy and I might have some advice that could help her because I just heard her on the radio, we were talking. And that woman, her name is Wendy Wallace, worked with me for over 8 years as the project manager of my company, running my company, managing several employees. And it was a great partnership. And it all happened because I was listening to something that interested me to develop a skill that I needed. That's how these things happen. When you're doing what you need to be doing, everything else will align around you to help you do what you need to do next. Using traditional methods like this, I couldn't have found a great partner like this in a million years. And we don't work together on a daily basis. But even though that aspect of our relationship is gone, I still keep in touch with her regularly, and we still work on projects from time to time. That's the kind of partnership that you want. It's like going to war, and you're going into the trenches here, but you can come out and you can still like and respect each other and still create something great. The way to do that, live your life, go learn what you need to learn, and find other people who are in alignment with you. You can't just pluck somebody out of the blue based on a resume and expect them to be a cultural match for you. Expect them to be a motivational match for you. Expect them to be the hard worker that you are. You've got to go do what you do, and you see them on that parallel track right next to you. That's how you know it's a match. If you've got questions or comments about partnership, I'm happy to answer them. Reach out to me just like The Thirst did. At David Hooper on Twitter is how to do it. Happy to take not only questions, but episode ideas. You want more of us? Subscribe on iTunes. Just go to iTunes, search Real Entrepreneur Development. We are there. Hit subscribe. You'll get every episode that we do. Thanks so much for listening. If you've missed her, Laurel is back on the next episode. We'll see you soon.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.
Yep, perfect in every way.